My name is Emily, and I am an anomaly in the world of economics. I am a thinker, a dreamer, a believer in the power of the unconventional. I see the world not as it is, but as it could be, through the lens of supply and demand, of opportunity costs and comparative advantages. The university is a fortress of tradition, a bastion of the old guard, and my professor, Dr. Hargrove, is its gatekeeper. He is a man of stern countenance, his eyes hardened by years of adherence to the conventional. He sees economics as a rigid science, a fixed set of rules to be followed, not questioned. Economics is a science, Emily, he would often say, his voice echoing in the grand lecture hall, not a playground for wild theories. I remember one particular day, a day that would set the course for my silent rebellion. I had proposed a new theory during a class discussion, a theory that challenged the traditional understanding of market dynamics. The room fell silent as I spoke, all eyes on me. When I finished, Dr. Hargrove simply shook his head. "That's not how it works, Emily," he said dismissively, turning his back to me. That night, I sat in my dorm room, the city lights twinkling outside my window. My roommate, Sarah, a free spirit studying art, looked at me with concern. "Don't let him get to you, Em," she said, her voice soft. "You have something special, something he doesn't understand." And so, I decided to fight, not with confrontation, but with my ideas. I would write a research paper, a testament to my unique theories, a challenge to the conventional. I would submit it to a renowned economics journal, despite Dr. Hargrove's discouragement. As I began to write, I felt a sense of liberation. I was no longer just Emily, the economics student with unconventional ideas. I was Emily, the revolutionary, the dreamer, the believer. And this was just the beginning. In the quiet solitude of my dorm room, I began my silent rebellion. The world outside was oblivious to the revolution that was taking shape within these four walls. My desk was strewn with papers, each filled with my unique theories, my unconventional ideas. The glow from the desk lamp cast long shadows, creating a world of light and darkness, much like the world of economics I was challenging. Sarah, my roommate, was my silent companion through those long nights. An art student, she saw the world through a different lens, but she understood my struggle. "You're going to make a difference, Em," she would say, her voice a soft whisper against the silence of the night. The research paper was my weapon, my shield. It was a testament to my beliefs, a challenge to the status quo. I poured my heart and soul into it, each word a declaration of my defiance, each sentence a step towards the revolution I was envisioning. I remember the day I finished the paper. The sun was just beginning to rise, casting a soft glow on the city below. I looked at the final product, my heart pounding with a mix of fear and excitement. This was it. This was my silent rebellion. Despite Dr. Hargrove's discouragement, I submitted my paper to a renowned economics journal. I remember the feeling of liberation as I hit the submit button, the sense of accomplishment, the anticipation of what was to come. As I sat back in my chair, I couldn't help but smile. I had done it. I had taken the first step towards challenging the conventional, towards making a difference. And this was just the beginning. The silent rebellion had begun. The day my paper was published, the world seemed to stand still. It was as if time had paused, holding its breath as my ideas were released into the world. The paper was no longer just a collection of my thoughts, it was a beacon, a call to arms for those who dared to think differently. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Economists and scholars from around the globe were discussing my theories. My ideas, once dismissed as unconventional, were now being hailed as innovative and groundbreaking. I remember the first email I received from a professor in Germany. His words, "Your ideas are revolutionary, Emily," echoed in my mind, a validation of my silent rebellion. Sarah was the first to celebrate with me. She burst into our dorm room, a bottle of cheap champagne in her hand. To Emily, the revolutionary, she toasted, her eyes sparkling with pride. We sat on our tiny balcony, looking out at the city below, its lights twinkling like stars in the night sky. It was a moment of triumph, a moment of validation. But amidst the celebration, I knew that this was just the beginning. The publication of my paper was not the end of my silent rebellion, but the start of a new journey. A journey towards challenging the conventional, towards changing the world of economics. As I looked out at the city below, I couldn't help but feel a sense of anticipation. The world was finally listening, finally ready to embrace the unconventional. And I was ready to lead the way. The idea had echoed, and the world was listening. The university, once a fortress of tradition, was forced to confront the winds of change. My paper, my ideas, had shaken its very foundations. The gatekeeper, Dr. Hargrove, was now faced with a reality he could no longer dismiss. I remember the day he walked into the lecture hall, a copy of my published paper in his hand. His usual stern countenance was replaced with a look of contemplation. The room fell silent as he placed the paper on the lectern. "We need to talk, Emily," he said, his voice echoing in the grand hall. It was a moment of reckoning, a moment of truth. The university began to reassess its teaching methods, to question the rigidity of its beliefs. Professors, once dismissive of my ideas, were now discussing them in their lectures. Students, once indifferent, were now engaging in debates, challenging the conventional, daring to think differently. And amidst this awakening, I stood tall, my silent rebellion no longer silent. I had challenged the status quo, and the university was responding. It was a victory, not just for me, but for every student who dared to think differently, who dared to challenge the conventional. As I walked through the university halls, I could feel the change in the air. The fortress of tradition was crumbling, making way for a new era of unconventional thinking. The university was awakening, and I was at the helm of this revolution. The triumph was not in the accolades or the recognition, but in the change that was taking place around me. I had become a beacon of inspiration for other students who dared to think differently. My silent rebellion had given voice to the unheard, to those who had been dismissed, just like I had been. One such student was Mark, a fellow economics student. He was quiet, reserved, often lost in the crowd. But he had ideas, unique, unconventional ideas, much like mine. One day, he approached me, a look of determination in his eyes. "You've inspired me, Emily," he said, his voice steady. "I want to think outside the box, just like you." And so, the silent rebellion grew. More and more students began to challenge the conventional, to question the status quo. The university, once a fortress of tradition, was now a breeding ground for revolutionary ideas. The triumph was not mine alone, but ours. We were the unheard, the dismissed, the unconventional. And we had triumphed. We had made our voices heard, our ideas recognized. We had dared to think differently, and the world was listening. As I looked around at the students, at the professors, at the university that had once dismissed me, I couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. We had done it. We had triumphed. And this was just the beginning. The triumph of the unheard was just the start of our revolution. My story, my journey, was not just about challenging the conventional, but about leaving a legacy. A legacy of unconventional thinking, of daring to question, of daring to dream. I was no longer just Emily, the economics student. I was Emily, the revolutionary, the beacon of change. My ideas continued to inspire and influence the field of economics. Students and professors alike were now engaging in debates, challenging the status quo, daring to think differently. The university, once a fortress of tradition, was now a hub of revolutionary thinking. I remember a conversation I had with Dr. Hargrove, the man who had once dismissed me. "You've made a difference, Emily," he said, a look of respect in his eyes. "You've changed the way we think about economics. And as I walked through the university halls, I could see the change I had brought about. Students were engaged in heated debates, professors were discussing unconventional theories, and the university was alive with the buzz of revolutionary thinking. My legacy was not in the accolades or the recognition, but in the change I had brought about. I had dared to think differently, and I had made a difference. As I looked around at the university, at the students, at the professors, I couldn't help but smile. I had left a legacy of the unconventional. And this was just the beginning. The legacy of the unconventional was just the start of our revolution.